In the winter of 2014, the Iron River Pack passed a death sentence. Any pup born unable to shift was to be abandoned in the snow. It was a law no one dared to question, until an Omega named Sophia Miller decided to fight back. She didn't have claws, status, or strength, but she had a mother's rage. This is the true story of how one woman defied an alpha, wrapped a crippled boy in her coat, and marched 10 miles through a blizzard that froze diesel engines. This isn't a fairy tale. It's a story of survival, betrayal, and the woman who walked through hell to save a child the world wanted to forget. The winter of 2014 in Montana was one for the history books. Local records from Missoula show that temperatures dropped to 20 degrees below zero for 3 straight weeks. For the humans in the valleys, it was an inconvenience. For the Iron River Pack, located deep within the jagged tree lines of the Bitterroot National Forest, it was a test of survival. Sophia Miller was 22 years old that winter. In the rigid hierarchy of the pack, she was an Omega, a domestic servant, essentially, responsible for cleaning the mess halls and tending to the laundry of the warrior caste. Sophia was quiet, mouse-haired, and possessed a jagged scar running down her forearm from a kitchen accident years prior. She was invisible, and that was exactly how she liked it. But invisibility became impossible on the night of November 14th. The Pack Hospital was a renovated hunting lodge, sterile and cold. The screams of childbirth had ceased hours ago, replaced by a suffocating silence. Sophia was mopping the hallway outside the delivery room when the door creaked open. Dr. Aris Caldwell, the Pack's physician, stepped out. He didn't look relieved. He looked terrified. He wiped his hands on a rag, leaving smears of crimson, and signaled to the 2 enforcers standing guard. "Get Alpha Colton," Caldwell whispered. "Now." Alpha Colton Graves was a man who didn't believe in bad news, only bad messengers. He was 6'4" of corded muscle and raw aggression, a man who ran the Iron River Pack like a military junta. When he arrived, the air in the corridor seemed to drop another 10 degrees. He didn't look at Sophia, who had pressed herself flat against the wall, trembling. He marched straight into the room. Inside, Layla, a high-ranking female, and the Alpha's current mate, was sobbing. But she wasn't holding the bundle. The baby was lying in a plastic bassinet, isolated. "Show me," Colton demanded. Dr. Caldwell peeled back the blue blanket. The infant was tiny, pale, and struggling to breathe. But the issue was the legs. The boy's hindquarters, even in human form, were twisted at an impossible angle, the bone structure visibly malformed. "Spinal dysgenesis," Caldwell explained, his voice shaking. It's extensive, Alpha. The connection to the wolf spirit is severed at the nerve root. He will never walk properly, and he will certainly never shift. If he tries to force a transformation, the bone density issues will kill him. Colton Graves stared at his son. There was no pity in his eyes, only a cold calculation of resources. In the wild, a wolf that couldn't run was a wolf that starved. In Colton's pack, a son who couldn't shift was an insult to his bloodline. "He is a broken thing," Colton said, his voice flat. "Colton, please," Layla wept, reaching out a hand. "He's still ours." Colton turned on her, his eyes flashing the amber gold of his wolf. "He is a liability. We are entering the harshest winter in a decade. We do not waste meat and warmth on something that cannot serve the pack." He turned to the enforcers. "Take it." "No!" Layla screamed, trying to rise, but she was too weak from blood loss. The enforcers, loyal only to strength, moved toward the bassinet. Sophia didn't know why she moved. Omegas were conditioned to keep their heads down, to survive by being unnoticed. But as the enforcer's rough hand reached for the crying infant, A spark of pure, blinding rage ignited in her chest. "Wait!" The word hung in the air like a gunshot. Colton turned slowly, looking at Sophia as if a piece of furniture had just spoken. "Excuse me?" Sophia stepped forward, clutching her mop handle so hard her knuckles turned white. You can't just kill him. It's against the old laws. The law of sanctuary." Colton laughed, a dry, barking sound. "The old laws apply to wolves, Omega. That," he pointed a calloused finger at the baby, "is not a wolf. It is a mistake." "Give him to me," Sophia blurted out. The words tumbled over each other. "I'll raise him. I'll take his ration from my own share. He won't cost the pack a dime. I'll keep him in the Omega quarters. You won't even know he exists." The room went silent. Dr. Caldwell looked at Sophia with a mixture of awe and pity. He knew what she was doing. She was offering to take on a burden that would likely kill her socially and physically. Colton stepped close to Sophia. He smelled of pine, blood, and arrogance. He leaned down, whispering in her ear, "You want the runt? You can have him. But know this, Sophia Miller. If that boy ever steps foot in my great hall, if he ever becomes a burden to my warriors, I will kill him. And then I will kill you." He straightened up and addressed the room. "The Omega claims the refuse. Get it out of my sight." Sophia didn't wait. She dropped her mop, scooped the shivering bundle from the bassinet, and ran. She named him Leo, for the lion strength she prayed he would find, because the wolves had already rejected him. For 3 years, Sophia kept her promise. Leo lived in the shadows of the laundry room, sleeping in a basket behind the industrial dryers for warmth. Sophia worked double shifts, eating scraps so Leo could have milk and soft foods. Leo was a bright child. By 3, he had a vocabulary that rivaled children twice his age. He had tufts of sandy hair and eyes the color of polished steel. But he couldn't walk. He dragged himself with his arms, his twisted legs useless behind him. To the pack, he was the crawler. To Sophia, he was the world. But secrets in a pack are like wounds. Eventually, they fester. It was December 2017. The tension in the pack was palpable. Food stocks were low due to a failed elk hunt, and Alpha Colton was looking for scapegoats. It started with a rumor. A beta named Kale, a cruel man who enjoyed tormenting the Omegas, had seen Leo reading a book in the laundry room. Kyle had mocked the boy, kicking his book away. Leo, possessing a spirit that his body couldn't match, had bitten Kale's ankle. It wasn't a wolf bite, just a toddler's defense, but Kyle had howled as if he'd been shot. He went straight to Colton. Sophia was folding sheets when the alarm sounded. It wasn't the intruder alarm. It was the judgment bell. Her blood ran cold. She scooped up Leo, who was playing with a wooden block, and pressed him to her chest. "Leo, listen to me. We have to play the quiet game. Do you understand?" "Is the bad man coming?" Leo asked, his small voice trembling. "Yes, but I won't let him get you." The door to the laundry room burst open. It wasn't Kale. It was Silas, the pack beta. Silas was different from Colton. He wasn't sadistic, just blindly loyal. "Sophia," Silas said, his face grim. "Colton knows. He says the boy attacked a ranked wolf. He's calling for an execution. Tonight." "He's 3 years old," Sophia screamed, backing away. "He didn't attack anyone." "It doesn't matter," Silas said, lowering his voice. "Colton is looking to assert dominance. He's using the boy as an example. You have 5 minutes before the enforcers get here. If you're here when they arrive, I can't stop them." Silas turned his back, leaving the door unlatched. It was the only mercy she would get. Sophia didn't pack. There was no time. She grabbed her heavy woolen coat, the one with the hole in the pocket, and a thermal blanket she had stolen from the supplies. She shoved a flashlight and a bag of beef jerky into her pockets. She strapped Leo to her chest using a bedsheet, tying the knots so tight they bit into her shoulders. "Hold on to me, baby," she whispered. "Don't let go." She slipped out the back service entrance, just as the heavy boots of the enforcers thundered at the front. Outside, the world was white. A blizzard had hammered the bitterroots for 2 days, and the snow was waist-deep in places. The wind chill was -30. Sophia wasn't a warrior. She was an Omega. She didn't have the high metabolism or the thick fur coat of the Alphas. She was essentially human in this form. But she hit the tree line running. Her plan was madness. The nearest town, Hamilton, was 10 miles away through dense, unmapped forest. Between her and safety lay the Dead Zone, a stretch of valley notorious for avalanches and wolves who had gone feral. The first mile was adrenaline. The snow crunched loudly under her boots, every step a struggle against the drift. Leo was silent, buried inside her coat, his small hands clutching her shirt. "Mama, cold," he whimpered. "I know, baby, I know. Think of warm things. Think of the dryer." She gasped, her breath pluming in white clouds before her. By mile 3, the adrenaline faded, replaced by the agonizing burn of lactic acid. Her legs felt like lead. The snow was relentless, falling in sheets that blinded her. She couldn't see the moon. She had to navigate by the slope of the land, praying she was heading downhill toward the highway. Then she heard it. A howl. It wasn't the wind. It was distinct, melodic, and terrifying. It came from behind her. Colton hadn't just sent enforcers to check the room. He had unleashed the hunting party. They were tracking her scent. Sophia panicked. She tried to pick up the pace, but her boot caught on a submerged root. She went down hard, face first into the snow. The impact knocked the wind out of her. Leo cried out as her weight pressed on him. She scrambled up, checking him frantically. "Are you okay? Leo?" "My leg," he sobbed. His bad leg had twisted in the wrap. I'm sorry," she wept, tears freezing on her cheeks instantly. She adjusted him, her fingers numb and clumsy. She looked back. Through the trees, she saw the flashlight beams cutting through the dark. They were maybe a mile back. She couldn't outrun wolves, not in deep snow. She looked around desperately. To her left was the frozen creek bed. It would be slippery, treacherous, but the running water beneath the ice might mask her scent. "We have to go on the ice, Leo," she whispered. She slid down the embankment. The ice on the creek was jagged and uneven. Every step was a gamble. Crack. She froze. The ice beneath her right boot spiderwebbed. Crack. Behind her the howls were louder. They were closing in. Sophia made a choice. She couldn't be careful and fast at the same time. She chose fast. She sprinted along the frozen creek, slipping, sliding, bruising her knees, shielding Leo's head with her hands. She covered 2 more miles on the ice, her lungs burning as if she were inhaling glass. The cold had seeped through her coat. She couldn't feel her toes. She knew the signs of hypothermia, the drowsiness, the confusion. She slapped her own face to stay awake. 5 miles. Halfway. She scrambled up the bank on the other side, entering a dense thicket of pine. She paused, leaning against a tree, gasping for air. "Mama?" Leo's voice was faint, too faint. She looked down. His lips were turning blue. Her body heat wasn't enough. "No, no, no," she begged. She ripped open the buttons of her coat and pressed him directly against her skin, ignoring the biting cold that attacked her exposed chest. "Stay with me, Leo, stay with me." She began to walk again, but her rhythm was broken. She stumbled. The snow seemed to be grabbing her ankles, pulling her down. 7 miles. She was hallucinating now. She thought she saw her mother standing in the trees. She thought she saw fire. "Get up, Sophia," she muttered to herself. "If you stop, he dies. If you stop, he dies." Behind her, the pursuit had slowed. The storm was too fierce even for the wolves, but Sophia didn't know that. She only knew fear. 9 miles. She saw the glow, not a hallucination, the orange sodium lights of the highway. It was there. Salvation. But between her and the lights was a fence, a 10-foot chain-link fence topped with barbed wire, marking the boundary of the private logging road. She reached the fence, collapsing against the metal mesh. Her fingers were frozen claws. She couldn't climb this. Not with Leo, not in this condition. She sank to her knees, the snow piling up around her waist. She looked at the lights, blurring in her vision. So close. "I tried, Leo," she whispered, kissing the top of his head, which was covered in frost. "I tried so hard." She closed her eyes, the darkness warm and inviting. Then, a voice. Not from the woods, but from the other side of the fence. A deep, resonant voice that cut through the wind. "Hey, you there!" Sophia forced her eyes open. A truck had pulled over on the logging road. A figure was running toward the fence. A man. He was huge, wearing a heavy parka. He reached the fence, grabbing the mesh. He had a flashlight, blinding her. "My God," the man said. "Is that a child?" Sophia tried to speak, but her jaw was frozen shut. She just nodded, lifting Leo up with the last ounce of strength she possessed. The man didn't hesitate. He didn't ask questions. He gripped the chain link with bare hands and ripped. Sophia watched in a daze as the metal groaned and snapped. No human could do that. He tore the fence open like it was wet cardboard. He stepped through, scooping Sophia and Leo up into his arms as if they weighed nothing. "I've got you," the stranger said. His voice rumbled against her ear. "I've got you both." As Sophia lost consciousness, she caught a scent coming from the stranger. It wasn't the pine and blood of Iron River. It smelled of rain and ozone. It was the scent of a true alpha. But not one she had ever met. Waking up felt like surfacing from deep water. Sophia gasped, sitting bolt upright, her hands clawing at the sheets. "Leo!" Her scream tore through her raw throat. "He is safe. He is sleeping." The voice was deep, calm, and occupied every corner of the room. Sophia froze. She wasn't in the snow. She wasn't in the Omega quarters. She was in a room that smelled of antiseptic and expensive coffee. The walls were painted a soothing cream color. A large window looked out over a skyline she didn't recognize, tall glass buildings reflecting the winter sun. She turned to the voice. Sitting in a leather armchair in the corner was the man from the fence. Now, in the harsh light of day, he was even more imposing. He had dark hair, cut in a military fade, a jawline that looked carved from granite, and eyes that were a startling, piercing blue. He wore a simple grey t-shirt that strained against his chest and shoulders. Sophia scrambled backward, hitting the headboard. Her Omega conditioning kicked in instantly. She lowered her head, exposing her neck, a sign of total submission. "I'm sorry," she whispered, trembling. "I didn't mean to intrude. Please just don't hurt the boy. He's useless to you. I'll work. I can clean. I can cook. Just let him live." There was a long silence. Sophia braced herself for the blow or the cruel laughter. That was what men like him did. Alphas took what they wanted and crushed what they didn't. "Look at me," the man said. His voice wasn't angry. It was just heavy. Sophia hesitated, then slowly lifted her eyes. "We don't do that here," he said, gesturing to her exposed neck. "My name is Ethan Blackwood. You're in the private medical wing of the Silver Moon Corporation in Seattle." Silver Moon? Sophia's heart stopped. The Silver Moon pack wasn't just a pack. It was an empire. They were the largest, wealthiest werewolf coalition on the West Coast. They owned tech companies, security firms, real estate. They were the modern royalty of the wolf world, and they were the sworn rivals of the Iron River Pack. You're the Alpha, Sophia breathed. I am, Ethan said. He leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. And you are Sophia Miller, Omega of the Iron River Pack, and the boy is Leo. I checked the birth records. He is the son of Colton Graves. Sophia went pale. How? I have my ways. But here is what I don't understand, Sophia. Ethan stood up. He moved with the silent grace of a predator, but he kept his distance, respecting her fear. Why would an Omega risk death to save the Alpha's cull? That boy has spinal dysgenesis. In your pack, that's a death sentence. Why didn't you let him die? Because he's not a thing, Sophia said, a flash of her old anger returning. He's a child. He calls me Mama. I raised him in a laundry basket while his father sat on a throne and pretended he didn't exist. Ethan watched her carefully. His nostrils flared slightly, taking in her scent. Fear, exhaustion, and underneath it all, a scent of wildflowers and steel. He is in the ICU, Ethan said abruptly. Severe hypothermia, pneumonia, frostbite on his extremities. But the doctors say he is a fighter. He will live. Sophia let out a sob of relief, burying her face in her hands. However, Ethan continued, his tone hardening slightly, you crossed a border. Technically, you are an intruder. Colton Graves is a violent, unpredictable man. If he finds out I am harboring his runaways, it could spark a war. Sophia looked up, terror returning. I'll go. I'll take him and go. You would die before you reached the city limits, Ethan stated bluntly. And I don't send children out to die. He walked to the door, pausing with his hand on the handle. You're safe here, Sophia. No one enters this floor without my biometric clearance. Get some rest. You look like you've gone 10 rounds with a bear. He left before she could say thank you. Sophia didn't rest. As soon as her legs could support her, she found the ICU. Leo looked so small in the hospital bed, hooked up to tubes and wires. But he was warm. His skin had lost the blue tint. Sophia sat by his bedside for 3 days, refusing to leave even to eat. The nurses, kind women who smelled of faint beta wolf scents, brought her trays of food that Sophia devoured like a starving animal. On the 4th day, Leo woke up. Mama, he croaked. I'm here, baby, Sophia wept, kissing his hand. I'm right here. Are we in heaven? Leo asked, looking at the television mounted on the wall. No, Sophia smiled, tears streaming down her face. We're somewhere better. But peace is a fragile thing. A week later, Sophia was discharged, though Leo remained in care. Ethan Blackwood had arranged for her to stay in a guest apartment within the Pack House complex, a sprawling, modern estate that looked more like a tech campus than a wolf den. Sophia tried to make herself invisible. She cleaned her own apartment obsessively. She avoided the common areas. When she walked the hallways to visit Leo, she kept her head down, flinching whenever a large male walked by. But she couldn't avoid Ethan. He found her one evening in the hospital cafeteria. She was drinking tea, staring out the window at the rain. You're hiding, he said, placing a tray of food down across from her. It wasn't prison slop. It was grilled salmon and roasted vegetables. I'm keeping out of the way, Alpha, Sophia murmured. Ethan, he corrected. And you're not in the way. Dr. Ross tells me you've been asking for work. I don't take charity, Sophia said, meeting his eyes for a second. I can work in the kitchens or the laundry. I'm good at laundry. Ethan frowned. The expression made him look dangerous, but his words were surprising. We have machines for that, and staff who are paid a living wage. I looked at your file, Sophia. Not the pack file, the school records from before you were taken into the pack hierarchy. You had a 4.0 GPA in high school. You were on the debate team. Sophia felt a blush creep up her neck. That life felt like a dream from 1,000 years ago. That doesn't matter. I'm an Omega. In Iron River, you were an Omega, Ethan said firmly. Here, rank is earned by competence, not bloodline. I need an archivist. Our historical records are a mess. It requires organization, silence, and intelligence. Can you do it? Sophia stared at him. He was offering her a job? A real job? Yes, she whispered. Good. You start Monday. And Sophia? Yes, Ethan? Stop bowing your head. It annoys me. As he walked away, Sophia felt something strange in her chest. It wasn't fear. It was a slow, burning warmth. For the first time in 3 years, she didn't feel like prey. 3 months passed. The snow melted, replaced by the grey drizzle of a Seattle spring. Life at Silver Moon was a culture shock. There were no beatings, no starvation. The wolves here wore suits and drove Teslas. They held board meetings instead of brawls. Sophia flourished in the archives. She organized decades of treaties and land deeds. She began to dress differently, trading her rags for simple slacks and blouses. She put on weight. The hollows in her cheeks filled out. She was beautiful in a quiet, understated way, though she still flinched if someone moved too fast. Leo was the real miracle. Confined to a high-tech motorized wheelchair that Ethan had personally paid for, Leo became a fixture in the pack house. He was brilliant. At 4 years old, he was reading at a 4th grade level. He sat in on pack meetings, quietly observing, sometimes whispering observations to Sophia that were startlingly astute. "That man is lying," Leo whispered one day, during a dispute between 2 contractors. "Hush, Leo," Sophia scolded gently. "No, he smells like lemons," Leo insisted. "Sour." It turned out the contractor was embezzling. Leo had a gift. He couldn't shift, but his senses were hyper-tuned. But the twist that would change everything didn't come from Leo's mind. It came from his blood. Dr. Emily Ross was the head physician of Silver Moon. She was a stern, brilliant woman with red hair and a no-nonsense attitude. She had been running tests on Leo to see if surgery could correct his spinal curve. One rainy Tuesday, she summoned Sophia and Ethan to her office. The mood in the room was heavy. Ethan stood by the window, arms crossed. Sophia sat in the chair, twisting her hands in her lap. "Is he okay?" Sophia asked, her voice tight. "Is it bad news?" "It's confusing news," Dr. Ross said, adjusting her glasses. She placed a holographic scan of Leo's spine on the desk. "Sophia, you told us Leo was born with spinal dysgenesis, that it was a birth defect." "That's what Dr. Caldwell told me," Sophia said. "He said the connection to the wolf spirit was severed." "Dr. Caldwell is a liar," Dr. Ross said flatly. The room went silent. "What?" Ethan turned from the window. "I ran a toxicity panel," Dr. Ross explained. "I wanted to see why his bone density was so low. I found traces of a substance called Aconitum vulparia, yellow wolfsbane." "Wolfsbane kills wolves," Ethan said. "If he ingested it, he'd be dead." "He didn't ingest it," Dr. Ross said, her voice dropping. "It's in his marrow. It's been there since before he was born. This wasn't a genetic defect, Sophia. Someone was poisoning you, or rather, the mother, while she was pregnant. Small doses, just enough to deform the fetus, to stunt the wolf spirit, but not enough to cause a miscarriage." Sophia felt the room spin. "Layla," she whispered. "Layla is his mother." "Why would Layla poison her own child?" Ethan asked, his brow furrowed. She wouldn't, Sophia said, her mind racing back to the memories of the Iron River pack house. She wanted that baby more than anything. She screamed when they took him. Then someone else did it, Dr. Ross said. Someone who didn't want Colton Graves to have a healthy heir. Sophia stood up, pacing the room. The pieces were clicking together. There was a beta female. Veronica. She was Colton's mate before Layla. He cast her aside because she couldn't conceive. She ran the kitchens. She prepared Layla's meals. A jealous ex-mate, Ethan mused. Classic, brutal pack politics. It's worse, Dr. Ross interrupted. She tapped a key on her keyboard. A DNA helix appeared. Because I found something else. I ran a paternity test, just standard procedure. Sophia stopped pacing. We know Colton is the father. Is he? Dr. Ross raised an eyebrow. Because according to this, Leo shares 0% DNA with Colton Graves. The silence in the room was deafening. Even Ethan looked stunned. What? Sophia gasped. Leo is not Colton's son, Dr. Ross stated, which explains why Colton was so ready to kill him. Maybe he suspected, or maybe he just smelled that the boy wasn't his. Then who is the father? Ethan asked. Dr. Ross looked at Ethan, then at Sophia. I ran the sample against the national database. It flagged a match, a 99.9% match. She turned the screen toward them. The father is Julian Vance, the former alpha of the Obsidian Ridge Pack. Ethan went rigid. That's impossible. Julian Vance died 4 years ago. He was assassinated. His entire pack was absorbed by Iron River. By Colton, Sophia finished, horror dawning on her. Colton conquered Obsidian Ridge. He took the territory. He took the women. Layla was Obsidian Ridge, Sophia realized. She wasn't originally Iron River. She was a war prize. She must have already been pregnant with Julian's child when Colton claimed her. She tried to pass it off as Colton's to save the baby. And Veronica, or someone else, poisoned her to make sure the bastard came out broken, Ethan concluded, his voice low and dangerous. Sophia sank back into the chair. This changed everything. Leo wasn't just a rejected cripple. He was the rightful heir to a fallen kingdom. He was the son of a legendary alpha, hidden in plain sight, crippled by poison to keep him from threatening Colton's rule. If Colton finds out, Sophia whispered, her face pale, he won't just ignore us. He will come for us with everything he has. He can't let a Vance live. It would challenge his claim on the Obsidian territory. Ethan walked over to Sophia. He crouched down so he was eye level with her. For the first time, he took her hands. His hands were large, warm, and rough. Sophia, listen to me, he said, his intensity burning into her. Colton Graves is a tyrant. He rules by fear. But he is a regional power. Silver Moon is a global power. You don't understand, Sophia said, shaking her head. He's a monster. And I am a king, Ethan growled softly. Let him come. Let him find out. Leo is under my protection. You are under my protection. Why? Sophia asked, tears welling up. Why risk your pack for us? Ethan looked at her, his thumb brushing away a tear on her cheek. The gesture was shockingly intimate. Because, he said, his voice softening. I have watched you for 3 months. You work harder than my warriors. You love deeper than any mother I have ever seen. You carried a boy 10 miles through hell because it was the right thing to do. You have more alpha in your little finger than Colton has in his entire body. He stood up, pulling her up with him. You are not an omega here, Sophia. You are the guardian of a prince, and I think it's time we started treating you both accordingly. Sophia looked at him, and for the first time, she didn't see a master. She saw a partner. But the moment was shattered by the shrill ring of the red phone on Dr. Ross's desk. The emergency line. Dr. Ross picked it up, her face draining of color. She looked at Ethan. "Alpha," she said, her voice trembling. "Perimeter breach. Sector 4. They found a body." "Whose?" Ethan demanded. "One of our patrols. His throat was ripped out." Dr. Ross swallowed hard. "And they found a message pinned to his chest with a hunting knife." "Read it," Ethan commanded. "It says, 'Give me back my property, or I will burn your city to the ground. CG.'" Sophia felt the blood leave her face. Colton knew. The body of the patrolman was brought to the sub-basement morgue, but the message pinned to his chest, written in jagged, angry strokes, was projected onto the main screen of the Silver Moon War Room. "Give me back my property." Sophia stood at the edge of the massive mahogany conference table. Her hands were shaking, but she clasped them behind her back, mimicking the posture she had seen the enforcers use. She wasn't an Omega anymore. She couldn't afford to be. Around the table sat the Silver Guard, Ethan's inner circle. They didn't look like the feral warriors of Iron River. They looked like board members, men and women in tailored suits, typing on tablets, their wolf nature hidden behind a veneer of corporate discipline. "Colton Graves has roughly 300 wolves," said Garrick, Ethan's head of security. Garrick was a bear of a man with a shaved head and a scar crossing his nose. "He's calling in favors from the mercenary packs in the Dakotas. Intelligence suggests he's moving on the city limits tonight." "He's insane," a female strategist named Claire muttered. "Attacking a corporate sanctuary in the middle of Seattle? The human police will be swarming." "Colton doesn't care about humans," Sophia spoke up. Her voice was quiet, but the room instantly fell silent. "He uses the wildfire protocol. He'll start fires on the periphery to draw the emergency services away. He'll cut the power grid. He thrives in chaos. If you treat this like a tactical assault, you'll lose. This is a hunt." Ethan looked at her from the head of the table. "Go on, Sophia." She took a deep breath. "Iron River fights dirty. They use psychological warfare. They'll target the ventilation systems with fear pheromones. They'll howl in shifts to deprive you of sleep. And he won't come for the front door. He'll come for the weakest structural point." "We don't have weak points," Garrick grunted. "This building is a fortress. Reinforced steel, biometric locks, silver-laced glass." "You have a loading dock," Sophia said. "The waste disposal unit. It smells. Wolves ignore the visual sensors if they can follow a scent trail that masks their own. That's how we got out. That's how he'll get in." Garrick looked at Ethan, who nodded once. "Double the guard at the disposal unit. Seal the vents." Ethan stood up. "There is one more thing you all need to know. We are not just protecting a refugee. We are protecting a lineage." He pressed a button, and the DNA results Dr. Ross had found flashed onto the screen. The boy, Leo, is the biological son of Julian Vance. A collective gasp went through the room. The name Vance was legendary. The Obsidian Ridge Pack had been the peacekeepers of the North until Colton massacred them. "If the boy is a Vance," Garrick said, his voice hushed, "then Iron River is occupying stolen territory. If the Council finds out Colton killed the true heir's father and tried to kill the heir, Colton loses his legitimacy. Every pack under his thumb would revolt." "Exactly," Ethan said. "Colton isn't here to retrieve a cripple. He's here to erase the evidence. As long as Leo breathes, Colton is a usurper. If Leo dies, Colton is king." Ethan slammed his hand on the table. "We hold the line. No one enters. No one leaves. Initiate Protocol 0. As the meeting dispersed, the building began to transform. Steel shutters slammed down over the floor-to-ceiling windows. The hum of the HVAC system died, replaced by the recycled air of the internal generators. The Silver Moon headquarters became a tomb. Sophia rushed back to the safe room where Leo was being kept. It was a windowless panic room stocked with supplies. Leo was sitting in his wheelchair, holding a tablet. "Are the bad men here?" Leo asked. He didn't look scared. He looked focused. "They're outside, Leo," Sophia said, kneeling to check the straps on his legs. "But Ethan? Alpha Ethan has a lot of friends. They're going to stop them." "I can hear them," Leo whispered. Sophia froze. "The walls are soundproof, baby. You can't hear them." "Not with my ears," Leo tapped his temple. "I can hear their thoughts, not words. Just hunger. They're hungry, Mama, and they're looking for the rotten spot." "The rotten spot?" Sophia asked. "The place where the smell is bad," Leo said, his nose scrunching up. "Inside the house." Sophia's blood ran cold. She remembered Leo's comment months ago about the contractor who smelled like sour lemons. Leo wasn't sensing the wolves outside. He was sensing something inside the building. Before she could ask more, the lights went out. Total blackness. The generators didn't kick in. "Stay here," Sophia commanded, her heart hammering against her ribs. She fumbled for the flashlight in her pocket, the same one she'd carried through the snow. She clicked it on. The beam cut through the dark room. The electronic lock on the safe room door beeped. Click. It hadn't locked down. It had opened. The door swung inward. Standing in the doorway wasn't a wolf. It was Garrick, the head of security. "Garrick!" Sophia breathed, relief washing over her. "Thank God, the power cut. We need to move Leo." Garrick stepped into the room. He held a suppressed pistol in his hand. He didn't look like a protector anymore. He looked tired. "I'm sorry, Sophia," Garrick said, raising the gun. "Colton offered me $10 million and a safe passage to Europe. Silver Moon is great, but I have gambling debts that even Ethan can't fix." It was the rotten spot. The traitor wasn't a contractor. It was the man with the keys to the castle. "He's a child," Sophia pleaded, stepping in front of the wheelchair. "He's a paycheck," Garrick said. "Move, or I shoot you through the stomach and take him anyway." Leo didn't scream. He stared at Garrick with those intense, steel-grey eyes. "You smell like fear," Leo said, his voice echoing in the small room. "Shut up, kid," Garrick snapped. "And you smell like burnt wire," Leo added. Suddenly, the localized fire suppression system, a high-pressure chemical foam nozzle directly above Garrick's head, exploded. Leo had hacked the building control system with his tablet. Garrick roared as the chemical foam blinded him, stinging his eyes and filling his mouth. Ideally, it was meant to put out electrical fires. Practically, it was like being hit with a fire hose of stinging soap. "Run, Mama!" Leo yelled. Sophia didn't hesitate. She grabbed the handles of the wheelchair and rammed it into Garrick's shins. The big man crumpled, firing a shot blindly into the ceiling. Sophia pushed Leo out into the hallway, sprinting into the darkness. The hallway was a chaotic strobe of emergency red lights. The main power was gone, sabotaged by Garrick, but the backup emergency strips were flickering. "Where are we going?" Leo shouted over the wail of the sirens. "To Ethan!" Sophia yelled back. She knew they couldn't take the elevators. They were trapped on the 40th floor. Garrick wouldn't be down for long, and if he had opened the doors for himself, he had likely opened the perimeter for Iron River. As if on cue, the glass wall at the far end of the corridor, the one leading to the sky bridge, shattered. 3 wolves, massive and dark-furred, leaped through the breach. They shook the glass from their pelts and snarled. They were Iron River enforcers. Sophia spun the wheelchair around, heading for the stairwell. "Hold on!" She burst through the fire door, the heavy steel slamming shut behind them. She locked it, but the wolves threw themselves against it. The metal buckled. "We can't go down the stairs," Leo cried. My chair! Sophia looked at the stairs, then at the heavy motorized chair. It weighed 200 pounds. She couldn't carry it, and she couldn't carry Leo fast enough to outrun wolves on foot. They were trapped in the stairwell landing. Thud, thud, screech. Claws were tearing through the metal door. Sophia knelt before Leo. She unbuckled him. I'm going to carry you. We're going up to the roof. The helicopter pad. Mama, you can't, Leo cried. I carried you 10 miles in the snow, Sophia said, her eyes fierce. I can carry you up 10 flights of stairs. She hoisted him onto her back. He was heavier now than he had been 3 years ago. His legs were dead weight. Sophia gritted her teeth, grabbed the railing, and began to climb. Below them, the door gave way. Snarls echoed up the concrete shaft. Sophia climbed. Her lungs burned. Her legs, which had grown strong from months of good food and safety, remembered the pain of the blizzard. 1 step, 2 steps. By the 45th floor, she could hear the clicking of claws on the steps below. They're coming fast, Mama, Leo whispered into her ear. I know, Sophia gasped. She reached the 50th floor, the roof access. She slammed her shoulder against the push bar. It flew open, and the cold night air hit her face. It was raining. She stumbled onto the helipad. The wind was howling, whipping her hair across her face. But there was no helicopter. It had already launched, likely deploying the tactical team. She ran to the edge of the roof, looking down. The city lights were dizzying. There was nowhere to go. Behind her, the roof access door burst open. 3 wolves trotted out. They didn't rush. They fanned out, circling her. Then, the middle wolf shifted. His bones cracked and reshaped until a man stood there, naked and steaming in the cold rain. It wasn't Colton. It was Silas, the beta who had warned her years ago. He looked older, more scarred. Sophia, Silas said, panting. Don't make this harder. Give us the boy. You let me go, Sophia said, backing up until her heels hit the edge of the helipad. You warned me that night. You have a heart, Silas. I have an alpha, Silas spat. Colton is downstairs. He's tearing through the silver guard. Garrick let us in. It's over. Give us the Vance spawn, and Colton said he might let you live as a breeder. He's not a spawn, Sophia screamed. He's a child. Silas stepped forward. He is a disease. He lunged. Sophia braced herself to throw Leo to the side and take the bite, but a shadow dropped from the sky. It landed with a crater-cracking boom between Sophia and Silas. Ethan. He hadn't taken the elevator. He had climbed the exterior of the building, clawing his way up the concrete like a gargoyle. He was in his human form, but his eyes were glowing a brilliant, violent violet, the sign of an alpha pushed to his absolute limit. He was shirtless, his chest heaving, covered in scratches from the climb. Step away from my mate, Ethan growled. The word hung in the air. Mate. Sophia felt a shockwave go through her. He hadn't claimed her publicly. He hadn't even kissed her. But the bond was there, undeniable in the face of death. Silas hesitated. Ethan Blackwood, you're outnumbered. Am I? Ethan smirked. He raised his hand and snapped his fingers. From the edge of the roof, shadows detached themselves. 10 members of the Silver Guard, wearing tactical gear and wielding silver nitrate assault rifles, rappelled up from the floor below. They had been waiting. You thought Garrick was the only one playing a game? Ethan said, his voice cold. I knew Garrick was compromised a week ago. I let him open the door. I wanted you all inside. It's easier to kill rats when they're in a trap. Silas's eyes went wide. It was a setup. Fire, Ethan commanded. The roof lit up with muzzle flashes. The 3 Iron River wolves were cut down before they could shift. Silas took a bullet to the shoulder and fell, writhing. Ethan turned to Sophia. He didn't check the enemies. He went straight to her, pulling her and Leo into his arms. He was burning hot, his heart racing like a trip hammer. "Are you hurt?" he demanded, scanning her face. "No." Sophia shook her head, breathless. "Leo saved us. He blinded Garrick." Ethan looked at the boy, who was clinging to Sophia's neck. "Good job, soldier." "Is it over?" Leo asked. Ethan looked toward the stairwell door. A low, vibrating rumble was coming from deep within the building. It sounded like an earthquake. "No," Ethan said grimly. "Colton is here, and he's not sending minions anymore." The door to the roof exploded. Not opened, exploded. Metal shrapnel flew across the helipad. Stepping through the smoke was a wolf the size of a horse. Its fur was matted with blood, its muzzle scarred and grey. It was Colton Graves in his full alpha form. He didn't look at Ethan. He looked straight at Leo. The massive wolf threw back its head and let out a roar that shattered the windows on the floor below. It was a challenge, a demand for blood. Ethan stepped in front of Sophia and Leo. He began to strip off his tattered pants. "Take Leo to the chopper," Ethan said, nodding to the aircraft now rising from the secondary pad on the lower roof. "Get him out of here." "What about you?" Sophia cried, grabbing his arm. Ethan looked at her. His eyes were soft for a fraction of a second before the violet fire consumed them again. "I'm going to finish what should have been done 20 years ago." He pushed her away gently. Then Ethan Blackwood shifted. It was instantaneous. One moment a man, the next a midnight black wolf with fur like velvet and teeth like obsidian daggers. He was slightly smaller than Colton, but faster. Much faster. The two alphas collided in the center of the rain-slicked roof, a tangle of fur and fury. The impact shook the building. Sophia hesitated. She saw the helicopter waiting. She saw the pilot waving frantically, but she also saw Silas, bleeding on the ground, reaching for a discarded pistol. He was aiming at Ethan's exposed flank. Sophia didn't think. She didn't run to the chopper. She dropped Leo gently near the ventilation unit. "Stay down," she ordered. She picked up the heavy fire extinguisher that had been blown off the wall by the explosion. She wasn't a wolf. She was a mother. And she was done running. The rain was deafening, but the sound of the metal fire extinguisher colliding with Silas's skull was louder. Crack. Silas collapsed instantly, the gun skittering across the wet concrete. Sophia stood over him, chest heaving, her hands vibrating from the impact. She hadn't just knocked out a beta, she had shattered 20 years of fear. On the other side of the roof, the battle of the alphas had reached its climax. Colton was a juggernaut, his sheer mass driving Ethan back toward the HVAC units. Ethan was bleeding from a deep gash in his flank, his black fur matted with crimson. Colton lunged, his jaws clamping onto Ethan's shoulder. Ethan howled, a sound of pure agony. "Ethan!" Sophia screamed, grabbing the pistol Silas had dropped. She didn't know how to shoot, but she pointed it at the mass of grey fur. But before she could pull the trigger, a small voice cut through the storm. "Look at me!" It was Leo. He had dragged himself to the edge of the vent. He wasn't crying. He was staring directly at the monstrous form of Colton Graves. His grey eyes were glowing with a strange silver luminescence. Colton froze. For a split second, the alpha paused, confused by the sudden spike of psychic pressure emanating from the crippled boy. It was the blood of the Vance line, the ancient command, flaring to life. That split second was all Ethan needed. Ignoring the pain in his shoulder, Ethan twisted his body, using his lower center of gravity to leverage the massive grey wolf up and over. With a roar that shook the building, Ethan slammed Colton onto the jagged metal of the exposed ventilation fan. Colton yelped, scrabbling for purchase. but the wet metal offered none. Ethan lunged one last time, his jaws closing around Colton's throat. There was a wet tear, a gurgle, and then silence. The tyrant of the bitterroots went limp. Ethan released the body, backing away, panting heavily. He looked at Sophia, then at Leo. Slowly, painfully, his bones shifted. The black fur receded, leaving a battered, naked man standing in the rain. He stumbled toward Sophia. She dropped the gun and ran to him, catching him as his knees gave out. "You're crazy," Ethan wheezed, blood staining his teeth. "You attacked an enforcer with a fire extinguisher." "And you fought a tank," Sophia sobbed, pressing her forehead against his. "We're both crazy." Ethan reached out, pulling Leo into the embrace. "It's over," he whispered. "He can't hurt you anymore." 1 year later, the merger of the Iron River and Silver Moon packs was not easy, but it was necessary. The old laws of the Bitterroots were burned. The discard decree was abolished. In the gardens of the Silver Moon estate, a ceremony was taking place. Leo, now 5 years old, sat in a custom-designed chair that allowed him to stand upright using hydraulic supports. He wore a small suit, looking every bit the heir he was. Sophia stood beside him, her hand resting on his shoulder. She wore a dress of silver silk. She wasn't just Sophia the Omega anymore. She was Sophia Blackwood, the Lunar of the largest pack on the west coast. Ethan stepped up to the podium. He looked out at the sea of faces, wolves from both packs, standing united. "Today we don't just celebrate a merger," Ethan's voice boomed. "We celebrate a lesson. We used to believe strength was in the teeth and the claw. We were wrong." He pointed to Leo, and then to Sophia. "Strength is carrying a burden when you can barely walk. Strength is facing a monster to save a child that isn't yours. This pack will no longer be ruled by fear. It will be ruled by the heart." Sophia looked at Ethan, her mate, her king. She looked down at her son, the boy who survived the snow. They said nature was cruel, and it was. But love, Sophia realized, was the only thing wilder than the winter. That is the story of Sophia Miller and the Iron River Pack. It's a brutal reminder that sometimes the monsters aren't the ones with the claws. They are the ones who make the laws. But it's also a testament to the fact that an Omega's love can be more dangerous and more powerful than an Alpha's rage. Sophia didn't just save a boy that night. She saved the soul of a pack. If this story moved you, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next saga. And I want to know in the comments, do you think Ethan did the right thing by keeping Leo's lineage a secret until the end? Let's talk about it. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next one.